Hello.
Welcome to another episode of Patterns and Podcasts for Knitters. My name is Renee, and I am coming to you from Northern Illinois, and it is another beautiful day, sunny and cool and crisp, not too cold, not too warm, just perfect. But anyway, so today we are going to be focusing on podcasts where vests were a finished object or talking about vests. I do have an inspiration video to start with that I absolutely love, one of my favorite podcasters. We also have a tutorial, a couple of tutorials where you can actually go step by step through to learn how to make particular vests if you're a new knitter. But I think vests are relatively easy to make. I am wearing my vest for this occasion. This was a practice crochet. I have a trigger finger. I don't know if anybody's ever had that. It's really bad. It sticks and hurts. And I don't want to get it fixed, so instead I'm crocheting until I learn how to knit continental style. If I can hold the yarn in this hand, just like with crochet, this hand doesn't do a whole lot. So anyway, that's what I'm working on. But this is made out of cotton. I wanted to do a practice crochet. It's just a little vest. I don't like the way this type of yarn pulls, but I had this yarn for a baby knit project that I was doing. I do like the way it stripes. And also I did learn how when you do crochet to make the ribbing lay down. I figured it out just on this side from here to here. You have to slip stitch into 3 stitches on the body when you're attaching it. This is all roughly and too big because I was only slip stitching into 2 and it made it too wavy. Be cute for a 5-year-old, but not exactly what I want. So I might rip this out and redo it. I don't know. But again, this was just a practice vest. I'm now starting on another one that's really going to be pretty. I think it'll be striped, and I will wear that when it's finished. The other thing I made, by the way, is a cowl for my husband. This is some yarn that I bought in Tivoli, New York, a tiny town in the Hudson Valley. It's really pretty. It's grays and blacks. It's kind of a bluish gray. He's kind of that's kind of his style. And I made it just the right size with a ribbing at the bottom so it lays flat and keeps him warm. He doesn't like cold weather. It's going to get very cold here. And this is the yarn. It's hard to get this thing. It's really pretty. I held 2 strands together, but I am doing a little swatch with a single because I might also make a scarf, and it'll drape so nicely because when it's done, held single. So anyway, so I'm learning a lot about crochet. You know what they say, necessity is the mother of invention. That's what's going on here. Anyway, so let's get into our podcast focusing on vests. And vests are really making a big comeback. I particularly like them because your arms are free. So you can really move around and do things, yet they keep you warm and they're cute. Cute is important. So anyway, let's get started with today's episode. Okay, so here are today's stars. These are the podcasters that we're focusing on today. We have 7 hand knit vests. These are 7 finished objects. We do have inspirational video looking at some vest patterns and ideas. Vests are really making a huge comeback. If they've ever gone away, I don't know if they have or not, but I happen to love them, as I said. And we do have a tutorial on Argyle. If you've ever wanted to knit an Argyle vest, and I don't think you can talk about vests without featuring at least one Argyle vest. But anyway, so these are our stars, and you will meet them very shortly. So let's move on. Okay, so first up is Selma, who is the host of Little Big Knits. This is a podcast that I love. I've watched many, many of her episodes. And in this one, there are 2 episodes that I will give you the information on. In one, she posted a segment called The Season for Vests. That's the most recent one where she's declaring this is the season for vests, and I would say it is. And a year ago, she filmed the Vest Parade, and these are vests that she has made, and she models them for us. So lots of good ideas for patterns. Selma is an excellent knitter. She's well connected in the knitting community with yarn shops and other designers. She has been doing her YouTube channel since 2015. She has over 1 million views. And I do love her style. She's one of those knitters, podcasters who does knitwear for grown-ups. Although many of these vest styles are very youngish and pretty. That one up in the upper left corner is the Sarah vest, which I think is so cute. You could wear that over dresses. And then there is something called a Birch bubble dress, which is obviously a different stitch pattern and cropped, but that one is also cute. So these are just a couple of ideas as we go through this. If you love any of these, just jot down the name of the pattern or go and watch this podcast, and Selma goes through all of these in quite a lot of detail. So all of these vests are classic. I love each one of them for different reasons. I particularly like this Hilma vest. It's got a cable that goes down either side, and in this podcast you can see it better. And also, of course, the Reflections vest is pretty as well. Again, cabled vests somehow, well, they're so classic and beautiful. I like both of these. Here are a couple more. This Mondo cable shell is really pretty. That cable runs down the front. It's obviously knitted with a lighter yarn. It's a little bit more drapey than some. And then there's a very plain vest. I would make this well, I don't know if I'd make it for a man with the sleeves like that, with the little cap sleeves, but again, it's pretty much just a basic crew collar vest. But and I think that I think Selma said that's one of her favorites. She wears it all the time. And she said that's what friends would tell you, is that she always has her vest on. But that's pretty. I really like it. I really love this Mondo one. Now this is the episode that Selma recorded a year ago, and she's wearing the Camden Hills poncho design that she converted to a vest. The designer is Elizabeth Smith. I imagine this thing just flared out from the neck. I don't know. I'm not into ponchos, so I'm not quite sure what was involved, but I like the color block that she did, the two different grays. She did get her yarn. The brand is Persimmon Tree Farms. Selma does a lot with information on different yarn shops. Evidently, there are many yarn shops still in, she lives in Montreal, pretty sure, Montreal, Canada. And there is one favorite one that she likes to visit. But anyway, this is lovely, and I do like this one I did the kind of a color block where from the armpits up you do a solid, and then in the lower part you might do a tweed or variegated or a different color. It's kind of a good way to kind of put the effect of a yoke on a vest without doing much more than just changing your yarn colors. Again, here's more from this episode. As I said, this is a year old, this episode, and this is October of 2022. And Selma models each of these. She went through a lot of trouble to make this. She had to do costume changes. And then she does talk in detail about changes she made. So you learn a lot from this episode. The grandfather vest, she said, is one of her favorites. It has a little button, I don't know what you call that. I can't think of the name of that style top. But I like that it's a little different and kind of basic. And of course, then you have to have the yoke fits perfectly with vests when you just do a little cap sleeve. She has some others that she models that's actually, I would call them summer tops, just short sleeved tops that she wears as vests. But this is awesome. I mean, it's really very helpful if you're thinking of patterns. So here's how to find these episodes. There are two of them. Again, it's Selma. The name of the podcast is Little Big Knits on YouTube. So if you look for episode 57, Knitting Deja Vu and Vest Parade. The Vest Parade is where she models the vest that she has made, and that was from December of 2021, so a little more than a year ago. And then episode 89, The Season for Vests. This is the brand new one that she just made in September of 2022. Again, little big knits. She has almost 18,000 subscribers. As I said, she has been on YouTube since 2015. She has a million views, over a million views. And Selma does have a Ravelry page. In the last episode I watched, she said that she checks Ravelry every day, and I don't know that she's keeping it updated, but she does check it for new developments. And she does have the Little Big Knits Ravelry group, so you can join that. She's very pleasant, always does her podcasts in front of her fireplace there, and I don't know, I think she is one of the more inspiring podcasts on YouTube. Okay, so first up of our finished objects is Saygee. It's Saygee. I'm going to say it's Saygee. And she is the host of the Artisan Geek. And the Artisan Geek has about 100,000 subscribers, so she's been around a while. And she does more than just knitting, but she's teaching herself to knit. And I think she's doing a great job because as a new knitter, she knitted this vest. The vest is the vest number one by My Favorite Things. I like it. It's very collegiate looking. It's very classic. I particularly like the one in the upper left corner with the green. It looks like it has a really beautiful halo to it. And the one that Saygee, she actually knitted it twice. She did it in yellow and she did it in purple. But I think the crew neck vests are particularly pretty because they look really good with a collar. And you can see the ones that Saygee is wearing, that kind of confirms it. Anyway, so she does do pretty much a tutorial in this, even though she's a new knitter. I have to give her credit. But she is teaching herself on air as she does her podcast, which is kind of cool. So here are some screenshots from her knit along tutorials where she's teaching herself to knit. She bought the Vogue knitting book, and she said it wasn't cheap, so she's really using it to teach herself to knit. That and podcasts, of course, and videos. But also, I noticed in the comments on her podcast, a lot of experienced knitters are helping her, giving her ideas. This pattern called for an Italian cast-off, but she wasn't sure how to do that. I have never done it. I'm going to have to watch a video and see what's involved. Oops, sorry, a door slammed. I've got the windows open. But she instead used a crochet cast-off at the waist. Oh, but she did use the Italian bind-off on the neck and armholes. So she's really brave. She's teaching herself. So again, I think it was successful. The yellow one looks adorable, and so does the purple. I think she's doing a great job of teaching herself to knit. I don't know if I mentioned that Saygee lives in, I think it's Norway. Here's the pattern information. It's available in English on the My Favorite Things website or from Ravelry. So you can go to two different places to get it. Again, it's vest number one. It's stockinette. That's what they suggest, but you could probably knit something like this, and if you didn't need to follow the pattern exactly, you could just use any yarn. And I think the good thing about vests is because you don't have to do the sleeves, they take a little bit less yarn, so you can even use them as, like I did. This is from my stash. So again, Saygee from the Artisan Geek podcast. She's knitted vest number one by My Favorite Things, and be easy to find this pattern if you were interested. And to get to this episode, once again, the name of the podcast is The Artisan Geek. Again, she has close to 100,000 subscribers. And if you look for Another Knitting Podcast, Episode 1, Learning Plan, Dark Academia, current projects. That's from April of 2021, and that's when she makes the yellow vest. And then another knitting podcast, episode 3, vest, sweaters, and stranded knitting. So she's really getting into it. That's when she makes the purple one. I didn't watch the whole video. I was really looking at the vests at that time. So anyway. So again, she's been on YouTube since December 2014. She has almost 2.5 million views. So it's always a good sign, I think, when podcasts have a lot of subscribers, that there's a lot of content there. It may not be the content that you're interested in, but obviously they are connecting with a pretty big audience. Next up is Bethany. Bethany is the host of a podcast called Well Loved Knits. And Bethany is a designer. I have watched many of her episodes. I really love her designs and also her style when she does her episodes. I don't know what it is. I don't know why certain things appeal and others don't. But anyway, Bethany is an expat living with her husband in Belgium. I think the story is that she went to school in Belgium and met her husband, and the rest is history. They are expecting, or were expecting, their first baby, and I know she was doing a lot of baby knits. She may have had the baby by now, I'm not sure. I haven't checked back. But in this episode that she posted in September 2021, she's very excited because she found a variegated yarn that will work for her vest pattern. She has a pattern called the Classic V-neck ribbed sweater vest, and I do love it in variegated yarn. It's so tricky to get the right yarn that's going to have the fading from one color to the next, and that it stripes softly and it doesn't pool. But she did find this yarn, and I think in this episode she will give you the details on it. But again, you know, if it's a hand-dyed yarn, it's going to be difficult to get the exact same thing. But the name of this pattern is the Classic V-neck ribbed sweater, and again, it is by Well Loved Knits, and of course that Well Loved Knits equals Bethany. Now, this is a really excellent episode, worth watching if you were interested in knitting this pattern in particular, because Bethany does a tutorial and takes you step by step through the process. I like the design because it looks like a 2x2 rib around the neck, but there's this little vertical tab right where the V meets. I don't know how she did that. Many of you probably think that's a pretty standard thing, and if you do, let me know in the comments. But I really like the look of it. I don't know, it's all about the proportions, isn't it? The size of the ribbing at the bottom, the depth of the ribbing at the neck, and the little tiny ribbing on the arms. So anyway, but it's a good episode to watch, especially if you're looking to knit a vest similar to this. So here's the pattern information. The name of the pattern is Classic V-neck Vest Pattern. It's €7. Dollar is equal to the euro right now, I think. It does run in all the way up to 2XL, which is great, so she's had it graded properly. She's saying the skill level is advanced beginner to intermediate. That's good. And the details are there on the yarn, etc., etc. I believe, and I'll say in the next slide, I think I put in there where to go to get the pattern. It is available on Bethany's website. I didn't see it on Ravelry, but anyway, we'll find out next. And by the way, this same design, the same pattern can be used to knit these other two versions of it. I didn't see 3 separate patterns. I could be wrong, but I also love the cabled one, and Bethany does have, I think I have it, she does have an episode for the cabled one as well. Of course, the checkerboard is cute too, but I think the cabled one is really pretty. Yes, I do have all this information. It's funny, I do these podcasts and I put all of the information together, and then time goes by and I can't remember what I did first, but this was one of the first ones I put together. So Bethany Well Loved Knits podcast on YouTube. So here are the episodes that you may want to check out, and I will put links in the show notes. So knit a classic V-neck vest, step-by-step DIY knitting pattern. That was from April 2021. How to knit a 2x2 rib V-neck. A close-up of the most amazing yarn. That would be the variegated one. That's September 2021. Things I mentioned, plus my favorite way to construct a V-neck. And well-loved knitting podcast. Finally finished up my V-neck sweater and freshly caked skeins. And that's October 2021. So these go back about a year or so, but you know, knitting is classic. It never goes out of style, really. So Well Loved Knits, she has about almost 85,000 subscribers. She has been podcasting only since 2021 and has almost 5 million views. So good sign, means that she's doing a good job in explaining things and her designs are cool. Patterns, you can go to etsy.com/welllovedknits and you'll get to her Etsy shop. Or you can go to her own website, www.welllovedknits.com. So that is Bethany of Well Loved Knits. And now following up on Bethany is another young designer who is very excited in this podcast because she just finished writing up the design for this vest that she's wearing. It's either a vest or it could be a summer top, but it works beautifully as a vest. This is her newest design, and I think it's only the second design that she has. But she's so enthusiastic in it, and I think it's a really clever design. This is called the Slanty Stripes Vest. And if you look closely, you can see that it has these lovely stripes that sort of miter together. They lean left or right and kind of attach really beautifully. So you can get like a two-tone stripe that, and as she has designed it, the little mitered edges where these different colors meet kind of moves evenly across the front of the vest, and I assume the back of the vest as well. She's a highly skilled knitter. She's very knowledgeable about yarn and drape. I've only watched a couple of her episodes, but mostly I've focused on this one because I was working on a vest covering these vests. Again, it's Emily Curtis. And it looks like she's starting to develop a brand that she's calling Gently Chaotic Knits, but the name of her podcast is Emily Curtis. So like most smart designers, Emily has put together a couple of tutorials so that if you do decide to buy her pattern, you can you'll know how to do the slants. And I believe in this episode she was just putting out a call for test knitters. So if you're a really good knitter and you like to do test knitting, watch this episode and figure out how to throw your hat in the ring for that. So she needs test knitters for it. I guess that's the process of doing a design. You design it, you make some samples for yourself, and then you write it up. You have it graded for sizing, and then you get your test knitters and you can start selling your pattern or offering it free if that's what you want to do. But anyway, again, I can give you the episode information if you did want to look at how these little slanted stripes are done. Maybe you already know how to do that. I think it's a really neat little technique. So I was able to find the pattern information, even though this is just going out for test knitting, because it was just posted in August of 2022. This is the beginning, first week in October 2022. But it is available on Ravelry. And again, it's Slanty Stripes by Emily Curtis. She has the color suggestions there, and I love the colors. Something about designers, and I've said this before, is they not only know how to design the knitwear, but I really trust their color choices. I think sometimes when you try different colors, it doesn't work out so well, but in this case, I think it's very fresh and preppy looking. It's so cute. So Slanty Stripes, here is the pattern information, and it looks like you could get the pattern now if you're interested. And here is the episode information. So again, this is Emily, Gently Chaotic Knits podcast on YouTube, but it's really Emily Curtis that you really should search on. So it's Slanty Stripes. It's the right slant tutorial. She put that up in July of 2022. Slanty Stripes, left slant tutorial, same month. Gently Chaotic Knits, episode 48, Keep Knitting, Things That I Love. She's so enthusiastic. She's a lot of fun to watch. And then Gently Chaotic Knits, episode 47, Time for a Change. And those two episodes, one is the finished object, the vest is finished, and the other one is when it was a whip. Again, and since July 2012, she's had over 100,000 views. She has quite a few subscribers already, which is great. And her pattern is available on Ravelry.com/Emily Curtis. So again, another young designer. Very exciting stuff. Aren't we lucky? Next up is a yarn shop in Montreal, Canada. It is called the Espace Tricot. I don't know what that means, and I took a bunch of French. Somebody tell me. I could look it up, but anyway, so this is Naomi and Stephanie. Naomi and Stephanie own Espace Tricot. It is a brick and mortar yarn shop, but also an online yarn shop in Montreal, Canada, as I said. And I actually started watching this podcast when the former owners owned it. And it kind of disappeared for a couple months, and then Naomi and Stephanie appeared, and they are amazing knitters. Stephanie is also a knitwear designer. Obviously, they talk a lot about yarn, and you learn a lot about yarn from them, which is great. And in this episode, the finished object is the underground vest. And the underground vest is a design by Shayna Bilo. That might be Shayna modeling the turquoise colored one up there in the upper left corner. That was on Ravelry. Again, it's the underground vest by Shayna Bilo. And Naomi knitted it. And Naomi does a lot of costume changes during these podcasts. What I really love about this vest is if you look in the upper right corner, instead of having ribbing around the sleeves, the armholes, it has, it looks like a knit stitch, a couple rows of knit stitch, and then a cast off or bind off of some sort. I don't know enough to explain it. I do think in this episode, though, that Naomi and Stephanie do talk about it. Yes, they do talk about it. You can see that these screenshots, she goes into some detail on it. I also like the length of this vest. Of course, you can, crop it. It would still look cute cropped. It would look cute at any length, even as a tunic top. But it is nice when they're a little bit longer and you can wear them over tights and knit it a little larger, give it some positive ease. And wear it, as I said, more like a little tunic top. It's really pretty. The yarn is absolutely gorgeous, and I did go on their website to get all the colorways for that because I love looking at color. So here's the pattern, and this yarn is called Garn Studio Drops Wish. The vest takes 5 skeins. Underground Vest by Shayna Bilo, and oh my goodness. If you knit a pattern like this, just as I'm doing with my own vest, I know this is just my test crochet, but once you figure it out and get the sizing right, why not make, 2 or 3 of them, or combinations of colors, color block, oh my gosh, so many opportunities to design on your own. So anyway, that is the yarn that, and this green is the one I believe that was used on the sample. Here's how you get to this episode. It is the Espace Tricot podcast, and the episode is number 39. That's easy to get to. They have about 21,000 subscribers. They have, of course, the former owners, I'm sure, started the podcast in 2016. They have over 1 million views, but I think it's been a while since they sold. You can get the this pattern on Ravelry.com/project/Espace-Tricot, or just search on Espace-Tricot. And then they do have their own website, which is kind of fun, where they have the patterns and they have yarn, etc., of course, because they're a yarn shop. And as I said, they are located in Montreal, Canada. If you are ever visiting there or if you live there, you should definitely check out this yarn shop. It looks really awesome. And who doesn't love wandering around a yarn shop? I don't know anybody. Now here is a new favorite podcast that I am going to watch regularly. This is Helene, and Helene's podcast is called Fable Knitwear, which is also the name of her yarn business, where she does hand-dyed yarns as well. Helene lives in Norway, and Helene is a knitwear designer and costume designer. She's very, very well informed, very well educated in the whole business of costume design for movies and shows and all that good stuff. But she has a passion for historic clothing, and she has a real knack for not only knitting historic designs, authentic historic designs, but for designing new designs, saying design a million times, that are inspired by, in this case, designs from the 30s and 40s. And what she has designed here is a little adorable vest that she has named the Ethylene. That's actually a Cinderin name, and it really refers to the fantasy, the J.R.R. Tolkien, Lord of the Rings fantasy stories set in Arda in the Middle Earth, and Aphilian refers to a city or area there. So it's a fantasy name, but it means land of the moon. So I'm not sure. I don't remember in the podcast if she talked about why she's named it that, but that is the name of it, if you can pronounce it. But don't worry about that. Ithilien isn't that bad. But anyway, so I watched this episode twice. I think the sweater vest is very sweet, very sophisticated, and she does model it and gives you quite a few ways that you could wear it. But whether you're using a variegated yarn or just like that inset that is one of the inspirations for this vest, even striping it, it's really, really cute. In this episode, Helene takes you through the whole historic design stories that influenced her when she was researching, making this design. She goes, I remember some of it was the square necklines that were worn by the court of Henry VIII, all the ladies there. She covers corsets. That was somehow part of her design process. But what really relates to me is, again, looking back at the World War II era designs, the little cropped vests, because they were introducing pants back in the 30s and 40s. Women were starting to wear trousers, and they were kind of balloon out a little bit. So a little cropped, tight-fitting vest was the best answer to be able to wear a menswear pant and still look like a lady. So I think that was the thinking behind it. But Anyway, she does show the yarn that she used for the sample that she's wearing, and then she shows yarn that she's planning to use for another version of this vest. So Helene lives in Norway, and all of her designs are available in English and in Norwegian. And this design is available on Ravelry, and it is the Ethylene vest by Fable Knitwear. It's published in Helene Amundsen's Ravelry store, so she is Helene Amundsen. Again, she does recommend the yarn that comes from her shop, and I love the sizes available, going from extra small to 3XL. So depending on how much positive ease you want to put in it, it's really I think a design that would be easy to wear, whether it's you're wearing it under a jacket or a blazer, or as she's wearing it here. So here is the way to get to this podcast, this episode in particular. Again, it's Helene at Fable Knitwear. And the name of this episode is I Designed a Knit Vest Inspired by Historical Bodices and Corsets. The Aphilian vest, and this was done in May of 2021. Fable Knitwear, almost 6,000 subscribers. This podcast has been on YouTube since December 2018, almost 200,000 views. You can go to the FableKnitwear.com website to get the pattern. It is available there, or to Ravelry, or to Etsy. And she does have a dye studio in Akersveen, Oslo, or on Akersveen Street in Oslo. So she is lovely, and I am a fan. I will always check in with her going forward because I just love all the information that she gives you and inspiration as well. So next up, we're kind of keeping on the theme of historic knitwear. This is an amazing podcast. I absolutely love this girl, and I love what she's done here. This is Shannon. And Shannon admits that she's an average knitter, but she's also a historian. And in this episode, Shannon shows us how to knit this sweet, beautifully cabled vest that is actually from the World War II era, from an authentic pattern that the Canada Red Cross put out to encourage people to knit. Knit for the war effort. So, I mean, who'd have thunk it? I had no idea this was going on. Many of you may be very familiar with it and have other sources and ideas to kind of inform the rest of us, but this is a World War II hand-knit vest, and the pattern is in the Monarch book number 87. Monarch is the name of a yarn business that was thriving back in World War II. I don't know if it's still in business. But they put out this booklet inspired by the Canada Red Cross and the U.S. Army and the Canada Army and the Brits to encourage people to knit for the war effort, because the soldiers needed things to keep them warm and dry. And you can knit this exact same vest, which I think is adorable, and also follow along with Shannon in a video as she goes through the process. So it's really, really fun, along with, I think, a very pretty vest. I think what's fun about this is, I mean, to be wearing something to a party or just out that has such a great story behind it, interesting story behind it, is kind of fun. I mean, it's not just a vest if you knitted this, but there's so much to tell about it. For example, and this is just a little bit of what Shannon has in this podcast, but there were war posters. This one is so interesting. Remember Pearl Harbor, Pearl Harder. There was a movie that came out promoting knitting for the war effort, and in it, Cary Grant is trying to learn how to knit. Eleanor Roosevelt herself was a knitter, And as you can see, there was just a lot going on. It could be many people learned to knit at that time just because they wanted to do something. They wanted to help. And how to knit, and they needed 1,000,000 sweaters wanted by Christmas. So really, really interesting. What's fun about this is Shannon goes into detail. Again, she is not an experienced knitter. She had a friend of hers show her how to cast on, but she did a great job. She did an excellent job. She goes off to a cabin in the woods and just decides that she is going to make this vest, and she's following the pattern put out in that little booklet that I showed you earlier. What's interesting too is the yarn choices were suggested in the booklet, and they definitely wanted people to knit based on the whether they were knitting for the Navy or for the Army or for the Air Force, because there were certain uniform colors that the government wanted everybody to use. I believe, I'm trying to remember now, but I think that Shannon said that she did use this yarn. She couldn't find the actual yarn from that era, but she did find a sweater or something at a resale shop and unraveled it, and I think that's the yarn she used. This is not exactly the color that she would have liked to use. I guess you're supposed to use olive drab or something for this particular pattern, but anyway, I think it came out really neat, really neat. I'd be happy to wear it. And here's a little bit more. Again, this episode is so content rich, I could not resist taking lots of screenshots and sharing this information with you. I did find this Monarch book, and I downloaded a PDF. Really easy to find it. So I have the pattern, and I have it on my to-do list. I'm definitely going to make this vest. Here's how you get to this episode. It is Shannon Makes, and there actually have 3 episodes that you may be interested in watching. Knitting for Victory, a free World War II pattern, a cozy cabin, and a touch of history, spies, socks, and soldiers. That was just done in February of 2022. Another one interesting is Behind the Seams, World War II knit vest, a closer look at its construction. That was a little later in February. And The Fascinating History of Wartime Knitting, I did watch that one. It is really fascinating, and that was March 2022. Again, the name of the podcast is Shannon Makes. She has close to 4,000 subscribers. She has been on YouTube since 2019 and has almost 300,000 views. If you want to get this little booklet and download it, go to wartimecanada.ca/sites/default files, documents, Monarch. It's a long name, but if you put any part of this Monarch knitting or anything like that, a bunch of sites will come up, but that is the official site if you did want to get a free copy of this. So again, that's Shannon Makes, and an awesome process, and really very cool episodes to watch. So as easy as it was to get the pattern for the World War II sweater vest, this one is more difficult to get this pattern. This is the Amy Slipover by Sonness Garn, and this is Anna Passi Trevino. And Anna Passi Trevino is another one of these young, very talented knitters who knows a lot about yarn and a lot about patterns, and she's quite particular about the patterns that she chooses. And she absolutely loves this vest. It's actually called a slipover. And as you can see, it's open on the sides and it has little ties, but she loves the high collar on it. It's kind of a cute combination of a turtleneck that actually is a slipover vest. It's kind of neat. but the pattern is only available in the Sandnes Garn catalog, and I did try to get the catalog or find it, and I couldn't find it. Even on Amazon, I don't think it was available. So, but she does have a solution. So as I said, this is the book that this pattern is available in. It's the Sandnes Garn pattern book. And I did go to the Sandnes Garn website, and they have a picture of the book, but they tell you to find a dealer near you, and the dealer near me was in Wisconsin. So I think that you could go to your local yarn shop and see if they can get it for you. But Amy does have a workaround. This is a different video that Amy recorded, and I'll give you the episode information in a few minutes. But in this video, Amy took the Sandnes Garn magazine, and she came up with different ways, different similar patterns that you could use to work around the fact that these patterns are so difficult to get. I think she said she got her copy from Europe, and it was quite an ordeal to get it, and then it was expensive, and then she had to wait to have it shipped here. So it's not readily available in the States. So this is a good solution, and it's not just about this one pattern, the Amy throwover dress or vest. It's also about many other patterns that are in the booklet that that are pretty cool, and that she's definitely going to want to knit as well. So once again, in this episode where the Amy slipover is a finished object, Anna goes into quite a bit of detail about the fit, changes she made to the pattern, what she loved about it. She really does love the turtleneck. The fact that it's a turtleneck neckline and then this open vest, that ties in the side, I think that's what gives it its style, and it makes it a little different. She said it's very comfortable to wear. It keeps your, chest warm and cozy, and your neck cozy, but you don't get overheated in it because of the fact that it's open on the sides. So anyway, I think just from a style point of view, even if you knitted it longer and made it more like a little tunic top, it has a lot of possibilities. Even over a dress would be really cute. Yeah, really pretty over a dress. So here's the solution if you're interested in knitting this pattern or something similar to it. If you want to watch the episode where she is going into detail about the pattern and about her finished object, that's August Knits, Slow Knitting, and Fall Fix-Along, October 3rd, 2022. But she also, back in June, put together a video called Duping Sandnes Garn Patterns. And what she's done here is you can go to this episode and she will show you other patterns that are very similar to this, or that you can combine, where one pattern had the collar, another pattern had the open-sided vest. So anyway, it's a good solution. Again, many of you out there, I'm sure, are good enough knitters and have enough patterns in your portfolios where you could put something like this together. It's not too complicated, but it does have some pretty, just like any professionally designed piece, it has little details that really separate it from, something that's just not as adorable. So you can suggest the suggested search on Ravelry would be for the Amy Slipover similar patterns, would be the Unarmored Defense Cowl and Apron Vest. So if you search on those two, those are the two that Anna mentions in the Duping Sandnes Garn Patterns, or just watch that episode if you want to get more information. So anyway, this is a very good podcast. She's lovely and an excellent knitter. Anna Passi Trevino on YouTube. And And finally, our final podcast that we are recommending today, or that I am recommending, I don't know who we is, it might be me and my dog Baloo. But anyway, um, this is a vest tutorial on how to knit Argyle sweaters, or Argyle anything. But I don't think we could really do any type of a promotion of knitting vests without covering Argyle. The classic Argyle vest, whether it's men's knitwear or ladies knitwear. I think this is so pretty. This pattern is in vogue. It's called the Cable Connection. That's the name of the issue. The name of this pattern is called the number 7 Argyle vest. And this one is by Mary Lynn Patrick. And oh my goodness, the colors are perfect. It's so cool with a long shirt. I absolutely love it. And here is another vest. It was a little confusing for me because when I looked to see what issue of Vogue this was in, it came up the same one, the Cable Connection. But the patterns are available on Ravelry, so no big deal if you want the pattern but don't want to have to buy the magazine. This is the number 10 Argyle by Sandy Rosner. This is published in Vogue February 2022. And this is the one that the tutorial seems to be focused on, although it's a little confusing because she does refer to this, the one that she's doing, as the diamond pattern vest. So in any event, this podcast, this tutorial is focused on how to do the bobbins and how to handle an Argyle pattern, or probably any complex pattern where you're using, looks like what, 1, 2, 3, like 4 different colors, 4 different yarns to create a design. So this is Cherie Annette, and she is the host of Rehash Fibers, which is a podcast on YouTube. And there probably are many of these types of tutorials, but if you are interested in an Argyle vest, it might be helpful if you've never done bobbins before to watch one of these podcasts. And hers is good. I mean, she takes you right from how to wind a bobbin on your hand to create it, how to follow the pattern, and then she actually does knit this sweater vest in the podcast. So I think it's really helpful. She does call it the Diamonds Forever Argyle vest, but it doesn't really matter. The two that I showed you, one is called the number 7 and one is called the number 10. So I'm sure you can find a pattern that you love if you did want to give this a try. And by the way, there are dozens of Argyle vest patterns on Ravelry. If you've been there, I'm sure you're very, very familiar with what's available. So here's the episode if you did want to learn a little bit more about how to knit Argyle. It's a knitting how-to, and she's saying Diamonds Forever Argyle vest and Intarsia tutorial. May 7th, 2022. The podcast is Rehash Fiber, close to 4,000 subscribers. They have been on YouTube since 2019, have almost 300,000 views. And again, both the number 7 and number 10 Argyle vest patterns are available on Ravelry.com. Search on the pattern and or designer names. And the podcaster is also on the Rehash Fiber website. That seems to be a conglomeration of different fiber producers. I did go to that website and look around, but I didn't quite get the gist of it. But in any event, doesn't matter. If you want to knit an Argyle vest, that would be awesome. So that wraps up our vest episode, and I hope that you've discovered a thing or two, maybe a new podcast that you might want to check out, a design or vest that you might want to knit. Anyway, hopefully it was helpful to you. Please include your thoughts in the comments. I think it's really helpful for you to point out podcasts that you like. I'd kind of like to know what you like about certain podcasts without naming names. I know I'm strictly business. I like to see the knitting. I like to see the patterns. I like to see the yarns. And I like them really focused on the work because I'm learning all the time. I'm not that great of a knitter. The crochet ones have helped me a lot now that I have to crochet because of my hand problem. But yes, I'd like to know. And some are very chatty. I have to say, there's one I really like, and all they do is chit chat a lot, and they do very little knitting. But I do like that one. And some take you to different places. They're almost like travel logs. Others take you to yarn festivals. So anyway, it'd be interesting to hear your thoughts on what you think, what appeals to you. So anyway, that's it. Let's take one last look at our stars of this podcast. So here they are. These are our featured podcasters. We saw Little Big Knits with her Parade of Vests. We saw Shannon Makes with her World War II vest. Well Loved Knits, which is a tutorial, and beautiful, beautiful variegated yarn vest, her own design. Emily Curtis, she has the striped vest there that she's embracing. That is her second, I believe it's her second design ever. We saw the Artisan Geek, and she knitted a purple and a yellow version of a really cute vest that, and she's learning. We saw Espace Tricot, which is a beautiful yarn shop in Montreal, which I hope to visit someday. And Fable Knitwear with the 1930s, 40s inspired sweater vest for grown-up ladies, which I absolutely love. We saw Anna Passi Trevino, who gave us a great workaround to figure out a pattern for the vest that she absolutely loves wearing. And finally, the Argyle tutorial, where you can learn how to use bobbins. And then once you get that down, which looks complicated to me, but like anything, once you learn it, you can do it. And hopefully that'll be helpful to you. So as usual, we'll have a comment giveaway. Again, please get involved with suggestions for podcasts that we might want to feature, episodes in particular that you like and why you like them. Again, as usual, the knitting community is quite amazing, and that everybody helps everybody else. So thank you for watching, and I look forward to putting together another episode. I'm going to do another one of pullovers and jumpers because it's October, and isn't that what we're all thinking about? So see you again. Bye.